Today's episode is brought to you by LaborFirst. Let's get into it.
I'm Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Put your helmets on, buckle your chin straps. It's a full contact sport.
We're going to find out who has a better bad idea. Historical UPS Agreement 2023. 60 non-economic changes, record wages, promises of job creation, 30,000 jobs. Biggest focus for us outside of taking care of the long-term part-timers at UPS was making sure that our members that worked in the hottest areas in the United States were taken care of, both delivering packages and working inside the buildings at the UPS facilities. During these negotiations, the company agreed to replace 28,000 package cars throughout the system, and anything new would have air conditioning in these vehicles. Also, they agreed to put 18,000 fans throughout the facilities in the United States. To date, UPS has put in about 14,000 of those fans, so they are on track to keep probably one of their only agreements in this agreement is the fans. They're on track to meet their quota. And also ice machines are another big issue. Zone 1 for the audience is the hottest part of the country where our UPS members work in the facilities. They load and unload package cars, and where our drivers deliver all those packages, whether it's commercial, residential, and that's usually the lower half. Zone 1 is the lower half of the United States, which is the hottest. Today, we're joined by Principal Officer of Local 767 from Fort Worth, Texas, Dave Reeves. That local has 12,500 members that work in extreme heat in various industries, UPS being your largest employer. We're also joined by a package car driver, a 9-year employee of UPS, has driven package for 6 years, worked as a part-timer for 3 years in the facility, who was a victim of the extreme heat conditions. And then we're also joined by shop steward Hector Medina from Local 79 in Tampa, Florida, who has been with the company how many years?
28 years.
28 years, majority of them as a package car driver, 6 years as a part-timer. And today we're going to discuss a few different things. We're going to talk about UPS's lack of ability to follow through on what they agreed to in the contract, specifically when it comes to heat and heat exhaustion. Also about what they are not doing to make sure that our members are safe while they're performing their jobs, and what is the remedy going to be for us. So, Ryan, let's start with you. You've been working inside the hub for 3 years as a preloader or as a sort.
Well, for 3 years I was a preloader, and then got promoted
to a driver.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were working inside these facilities,
Yes.
and you were working prior to this last agreement, what are the heat conditions like during the summer months in Texas?
There's just fans.
And what facility do you work in?
When I work preload in Denton, which is a building that was shut down, but it was very, very bad conditions.
Like what? Heat? Let's talk about the heat.
Heat, the fans half of the time didn't even work. And that's all they gave you. And the belts were about I would say 100 yards long. And there was maybe 2 fans that would blow for the whole belt.
And how many people average would be on these belts? So these belts are conveyor systems that packages are loaded onto, and the preloaders, which you load those package cars.
Yes.
A belt 100 feet long, extreme conditions. It's 100 degrees out. Buildings. How hot is the building at that point?
Probably close to 100 also. And then
Close to 100.
you're going in the back of the package cars, which are even hotter, probably about 110, 120. And there's 30 people just sweating like crazy. And honestly, whenever I was working preload, there was one guy who was like, I need to stop or else I'm going to fall out. And
So you're 3 years as a preloader, and you're relatively young. You're 32 years old.
Yes.
You've got 9 years with the company. So you went there at 23, 24 years old,
Mhm.
good shape, young man.
Yeah.
you would think that the heat wouldn't bother you as much.
It's
When you were working there on the preload, and we're talking about the inside, so the inside facility, there was never really a requirement to have a certain amount of fans.
no.
It was, we have a safety committee on the national that monitors and really didn't do a whole lot prior to 2023. But I think we were probably the most proactive negotiations where we really focused on safety of our employees, because going into these negotiations, I think in your area, Dave, there was a uptick. And, of course, everybody says it's because of global warming, the unseasonable temperatures going up. But there was people, our members, inside the facilities that passed out. Some died as a result of heat exhaustion. People were passing out on the road as a result of heat exhaustion. And, luckily, you always try and capitalize sometimes on a tough situation. While we were in negotiations, it was in the middle of the summer, it was very hot. A lot of these incidents occurred in 23, where we were able to highlight how dangerous this job is in extreme heats, especially in zone 1, where it's the hottest and toughest extremes in the country. And I think that gave us a lot of credibility to argue for more ventilation in the package cars, more fans in the operation. But the most important thing we achieved was air conditioning in the vehicles. So, Dave, what have you experienced? You're a principal officer. You're a UPS driver as well. How many years do you have in the union?
27.
27, all with UPS.
Every time. Started at
High
18.
school, 18 years old, 6-year part-timer, and then you became a full-time package car driver. Tell us what you see from your perspective as when you were a part-timer inside the facilities. You lived in Texas your whole life. Average is about 100, 105 degrees. I mean, I was somewhere recently in a hot area. He said, "Oh, it's going to be a nice day today. It's only going to be 97. I was in Arizona, and I'm like, 97? Like, I'd be dying myself personally in that. But, these are the extreme conditions you experience. So tell us what you have witnessed over the years from when you were a preloader to present day as a principal officer in the extreme heat conditions, and UPS's attitude or lack thereof compassion for our members that are performing the job."
I can tell you over the 27-year career, you've seen some changes at UPS. And I could tell you when I first started in 99, it obviously was hot then too. But you can see a difference, in my opinion, in the philosophy of the company when it came to taking care of the employees. Back then, they used to do somewhat of a recognition and half-ass take care of you. But over the years, we've seen, the expectation. When they cut the employees, they want more out of their employees, and frankly, not taking care of them. And you've seen that transition over the years to where you're getting more heat-related injuries inside the facilities. And I'll get into that just as the principal officer of our local union and witnessing it. But going into package, what we've seen the transition of package is in 2005, when I started at UPS, if you missed a next day air, you were in the office. If you missed a pickup, you were in the office. If you didn't make 9-5, they wanted to know why you worked over 9-5.
9-5 is the excessive overtime where, our members are working mostly over 10, 11, 12 hours per day. Even still, we have language in that contract that calls for relief of overtime, and there's a mechanism for monetary penalties to the company if they violate the 9-5. Now, you've got about, and this is important, because if you're working excessive overtime, and you're putting in for relief of excessive overtime, and you're working in extreme heat conditions, you're pretty vulnerable to heat exhaustion and a medical issue.
It's ultimately going to catch you, and that's exactly where I'm headed with it. We've seen the dispatch go. If you weren't clocked out by 7:30, someone was asking questions why you were out so late. But over the years, we've seen the company transition to, as long as you're going to make your DOT 14 hours, just let us know if you're going to deliver all the packages. It's no law. It is just transition to making sure everybody's okay to, hey, let's make sure that you work. As long as you don't violate DOT, we're all good with it.
Yeah. So I've represented UPS since 2000. I've never worked at UPS, never pretended to ever deliver a package, but looking from the outside in, to your point, UPS used to be a company where, there was a lot of pride in delivery. There was a lot of pride in commitment times. There was a lot of service oriented company where that was why UPS maintained most of his business. I look at it now, and I'm not sure you guys are from Texas, rural areas, but and you're from New York and then went into witness protection down in Florida or whatever you did. But you look at it like I look at it as now you're paper boys, old school paper boys. You just throw the paper. Hopefully it lands on the walkway and that's good enough, right? As long as Mr. and Mrs. Jones walk out in their slippers and they don't have to walk on the grass. If it's somewhere in the vicinity of their door, you don't care. They don't care what it was. I remember people going to the door to get a signature. And, that was important, getting those signatures. And that was a guarantee that the people got their packages and the driver was protected because, person signed for it. Now it's just packages thrown out and there's no follow-up, no care. And I think that's bad because that is productivity that isn't really not talked about. Think about it. When you used to have to get out of that truck, follow the methods, walk, get a signature, that whole time was calculated and counted. Now, when you don't have to do that or they're not enforcing it, you're running and gunning, throwing those packages out there. You're actually playing to the hand of UPS to get more work out of you with more packages. And, you're working in extreme heat. So the average day from June till September, what is the average heat?
Probably between 95 and 105 is historically where it stays between those times.
Right.
And you'll see if you look at the history of our generally injuries, you'll hit some right there at the beginning of the summer. But as the summer goes on and you hit the traditional 105 week, where it's 103 to 105 all week long, you can go back and look at those injuries. They know when they're going to happen at the end of the week when our guys are just absolutely worn out due to the extreme heat and they're continuing to load up. It ultimately catches.
So Hector, you're a shop steward. You've been a shop steward for a long time. You're an officer of Local 79, meaning that you're a part-time officer of Local 79, but you go to work every single day as a package car driver. And you're dealing with, as a shop steward, you're dealing with every issue that our members face, whether it's, attendance, whether it's performance, whether it's discrimination. But where you live and where you work, you have extreme heat conditions as well. I mean, Tampa, Florida, although there's nice beaches and everything there, it still gets hot. I mean, average temperature June to September is what?
Yeah, you're talking 95 to over 100 every day.
And what is the inside of those package cars? And Ryan, I can ask you the same question. 100-degree day at UPS as a package car driver doesn't mean that it's 100 degrees in that package car. What is the temperature if it's 100 degrees in that package car and you're working out of the back of it? Now, mind you, package car is a steel box, sun's beating down on it all day long. Mm-hmm. What is the temperature inside of, and I know you've posted some stuff on social media, what is the temperature inside of these vehicles while you're doing your daily deliveries when it's 100 degrees?
Yeah, and I'm not the only one who posted it. We have a large group, and the temperature...
That's a disclaimer. He doesn't want to get blamed.
No. I got
you. See, Timothy, right? So think about this. What did I say earlier, right? He's from New York, but went witness protection. He just gave up a bunch of people.
He didn't want to take care of himself. So what is the average temperature? I would say the average is from 130 to 150, but a lot of times the temperature says max. It maxes out the digital thermometer. So yeah, it is brutal, and there's no air circulation, right? Mm-hmm. When we talk about the inside, we're talking about stale air. So
there's nothing circulating. Now, in this agreement, we did get the company to agree to put fans inside these package cars, retrofit ventilation. And I think that ventilation was collectively worked on by rank and file package car drivers, safety committee members on both the union side and the company side. But look, let's face it, no matter what ventilation you have in there, inside the back of a truck that's 130 degrees, you can have all the best ventilation in the world. It's still going to be 130 degrees. unless you're moving through that vehicle and you're getting a break, the vehicle's moving, but you're driving at that point in time. So whatever ventilation breeze is going through there. And then you have another issue when you're in the rural areas. I was just somewhere in the country, very rural area. I think it might have been South Carolina or one of the routes. And I looked in the back of the package car and it was like an inch and a half of like dust and soot. I'm like, what the hell is that from? Well, as a result of putting the ventilation in there, now the dust and debris comes in through the ventilation, and it looked like a road that's been sanded after a snowstorm. So it's like, we don't know if there's a perfect science to protecting all our members from the extreme heat and or other things that may happen, but there is an ability to fix and make it a little bit better in these package cars, and they agreed to it. What are some of the incidents that you have seen as a result of the extreme heat? I mean, you go into work, you get the calls, your phone probably rings off the hook from 7:30 at night till 9 as a shop steward. Tell us some of the horror stories that have happened in your center in Florida. And by the way, what's happening in Florida and Texas is happening all over Zone 1 with these extreme heat.
That's right. And the thing is, it isn't isolated, right? 2 weeks ago, we had a driver, it was in the evening, drank his Gatorade, drank his water, did all the things that the company says, hey, listen, these are things you need to do to get through your monster of a 14-hour day, right? And he still was dehydrated, and he let management know immediately. Now, the contract says you all can also let a bargaining unit member know immediately. And the reason I say that is because management, it was a Friday night, management said, hey, listen, you're just a little tired. Go home and die it off. Fortunately, there was another driver there who said, no, you have to get to the emergency room. This driver was hospitalized for 4 days.
And then the company took the position, just go home, you got a weekend to rest up. That's not what a job is supposed to be like. That's not what a union job is supposed to be like. And that is not what management's responsibility is. Management's responsibility under this agreement is to make sure that our members do their job safely, efficiently, I guess, in their eyes, but more importantly in our eyes, safely. And there's agreements in this contract that require UPS to follow a certain protocol. And Dave, you sit on this national negotiating committee, which I chair. We have subcommittees, and we were heavily focused on these heat issues in the building, on the package cars. And it's a committee that is made up of company representatives and union representatives that daily monitor and find solutions to problems as it relates to heat in the package cars and also inside the facilities. Tell us a little bit about your role on these committees, what our goals and objectives are, and what we do on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis to ensure that our members are safe at work.
This episode is brought to you by LaborFirst, the leader in healthcare navigation and advocacy for plan sponsors, union members, and retirees. Navigating healthcare isn't easy, especially when it comes to Medicare, and it shouldn't fall on our retirees' shoulders alone. That's where LaborFirst comes in. They work one-on-one with members to help them understand their benefits, resolve issues, and get the care they've earned. From answering tough questions to fixing billing problems, LaborFirst is in your corner every step of the way. No call centers, no runaround, just healthcare advocates who care. LaborFirst was founded by a proud Teamster son and grandson. For over 60 years, his father and grandfather led Teamsters Local 837, now Teamsters Local 107 in Philadelphia with pride, purpose, and grit. That same union spirit runs through everything LaborFirst does today. Now, hundreds of union health plans trust LaborFirst as a true partner, delivering results, supporting members and retirees, and never forgetting who they are working for. When it comes to protecting what your members have earned, LaborFirst stands with you. Visit LaborFirst at laborfirst.com to learn more. This episode is brought to you by Catches Law Group, proud advocates for injured workers and their families since 1986. If you've been hurt on the job, navigating the workers' comp system can feel like fighting an uphill battle. That's where Catches Law comes in. They've recovered over $3 billion for hardworking people just like you, and they don't back down when your rights are on the line. They know what it means to stand shoulder to shoulder with unions and workers across the country. Because at Catches Law, It's not just about compensation, it's about justice. To learn more, check out catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com. And I've got to tell you, I've worked with Catches Law for over 30 years. They represent not only the issue at hand, but they make certain that our members are part of the process each and every step of the way. They fight hard to make sure they get the justice that they deserve. And please check out catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com.
So being a part of the National Safety and Health Committee, obviously we negotiated the language to deal with the fans, the ice machines, the AC, and a lot of the different safety issues. And we sat there and the company absolutely agreed to the language that they agreed to in that recharge program, which is not a part of the contract. It's an agreement.
What is the recharge program?
So a recharge program is a program that UPS introduced during negotiations, which they bragged on how much money they spent on this program and how much research they spent on a program to keep our drivers safe from the heat. Allegedly, they did a bunch of studies and came up with a whole program. And part of the program was also teaching it to their management team, who was going to administer the health and safety part of it in the event one of our drivers did go down.
So this recharge program, designed by UPS initially, introduced at the safety committee, like, hey, look, we understand, we hear, your grievances, we hear your complaints. We want our employees, your members, to do their job safely, to make sure they get home to their families. But like anything else UPS does, it's a bunch of bullshit, and it's basically a shield to protect them from, any responsibility or non-compliance issues. Who enforces this recharge program? Because to your point, it's not contractual, right? Anything that's contractual, like the guarantee of jobs, the 9-5s, the air conditioning in the vehicles, the fans, the ice machines, those are all grievable and enforceable through the grievance procedure. What is this program, and what are the mechanisms to make sure that UPS follows it?
So the program, it's a joint effort between management and the company. A lot of communication side is what they ask for from our side, for our members to communicate effectively to management. But on the management side, when they do get the phone call of someone getting dizzy, somebody reports in that they've already puked, they can no longer drive. There's rules within that recharge program that we agreed to that management would absolutely tend to those employees, and not only tend to them, but they would look for the signs and identify heat stress signs themselves. Because one thing we were running into is when we do have a member go into heat stress, we know that they're not thinking clearly. And when management in the past has asked them to make decisions, sometimes they're life-threatening decisions. When they tell them, I'm okay, and they're already in the middle of a heat stroke, we know that they're not thinking clearly. That was one of the commitments by the company, is when they run into these situations and they find an employee that has succumbed to the heat, they're going to make those decisions for them, and they're going to help not.
We have an example. I think we can bring it up on the screen. He's driving at how much?
Probably 70 miles an hour.
Okay, how hot is it at this point in time?
Well over 100 degrees.
We have it on video. It was videotaped by another driver. He's going down a highway or roadway?
Highway.
Right
after he told his boss that he was exhibiting a lot of the heat-related symptoms that we know, which we agreed to, once again, that they would identify and shut the driver down.
Apparently identified between the union and the company. These are the signs that there's going to be a heat issue where potentially someone could shut down and there'd be heat stroke.
Yes, and the company agreed in negotiations anytime they got that phone call that they as a company would shut the driver down.
So this driver calls
his manager and tells him what symptoms he's having.
What center is this out of?
This was out of the McKinney Center.
And it's what, 100 and something degrees?
Yes,
Okay.
over 100 degrees, and he tells his supervisor that he's having heat-related symptoms. And once again, rather than absolutely shutting the driver down and saying, hey, you're done for the day, hey, we may send an ambulance.
What time of day is this?
This is later in the afternoon.
Later in the afternoon. So I remember to stop between 8:30 and 9 o'clock every day. So he's halfway through his day for the most part in these extreme conditions. Starts feeling the signs and symptoms, calls the manager saying, hey, I just threw up, or I don't feel good. It's hot out here. Manager says what?
Drive the car back. Get rid of the package. Yeah, go take your boxes to another driver and then drive the car back.
While he's experiences these heat symptoms and potentially is at risk of, instead of pulling the package car over, instructing the person to pull it over, the manager says, okay, go get rid of your packages first and then drive back to the center. Now, that could be 10 miles, 5 miles, 8 miles. You're offloading your packages onto someone else's car while you're on the verge of heat stroke. And then now you got to drive back to the center. Now, what happens to this person?
So when I talked to him, of course, I interviewed him. And he said he was driving and he said he felt like he was getting ready to vomit. And he said that's the last thing he remembered. So when you see the video pick up, the bystander that shot the video, he's driving in the fast lane in the left-hand lane, passes out, goes through the median and into oncoming traffic. And in the video, you see the red car come head on at him. And he said he woke up right before he felt himself slumped over in the seat, and he grabbed the steering wheel to pull himself up. And right when he pulled himself up, that's right when he hits the tree. So he was only awake for about 3 seconds of the whole ride. But that's exactly what happened. He was driving and succumbed to the heat. His body just couldn't simply go no longer, and he passed out and fell over and slumped over in the chair. And you see what happened.
When did this happen?
I believe it was June of last year.
June of 2024. And had everybody follow the protocol that was agreed upon by the company and the union, this person in a perfect world should have been told, pull your vehicle over immediately. We're going to send someone out to get you, and we're going to make sure you get the care. Instead, UPS was focused on their packages being delivered, not paying attention to any consideration of the safety of the driver and, more importantly, the general public. I mean, veering over to the wrong lane of traffic on a highway, going 45 miles an hour, slumped over out cold, the probability of killing a family of 4 is pretty good.
Well, you could see in the video, he misses it by 30, 40 feet. There's a red car that misses his package car by mere feet, going 70 miles an hour at him. So, I mean, you think a couple of seconds, maybe a split second different in timing. And yeah, you got some kind of...
What was the company's attitude during this time period? Because you had to deal with the driver, worrying about if they're going to get disciplined, if anything's going to happen. The good news for you is you had a video.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not the norm for a UPS package car driver to be in the left-hand lane. It's not the norm for a UPS package car driver to cross over the median and go the wrong way into oncoming traffic. And UPS had to be shitting their pants a little bit because they were made aware of this potential risk and chose to ignore it and focus on delivering packages instead of the safety and well-being of their employee, our member, and the general public.
Yeah, so we showed up out there, and right after it happened, demanding answers. Why wasn't the driver shut down? And look, it got very contentious between ourselves and UPS management in those meetings. We did do a press conference. Like I said...
So tell us about the dialogue, because I think people need to realize what you're dealing with, what our members deal with, what the retaliation and retribution potentially can be, and more importantly, what UPS's attitude is, or lack thereof, concern or compassion for our members. So you get the call, you go to the hospital, you go to the facility. What's the first thing you do as a business agent or principal officer of the local?
The business agent reached out to the driver, obviously, to check on him. And then we showed up to the facility, myself, agents, to discuss with management exactly
that night or the next day.
The next day. So we go out there, and
was the driver there, or was he?
No,
in the hospital?
he was still out. And we had a conversation. The district president was there, labor managers in an office, and we were demanding answers, and they didn't have all the answers that we wanted. And they did find out, and we did tell them that we were going to do a press conference in front of their facility, in the McKinney facility. And it did get contentious to the point we were threatened.
You didn't mean threatened by who?
By UPS management. They said if we did...
White collar crime syndicate?
Absolutely.
Threatened you?
Absolutely.
Tell us how... Give us the details, because this is fucking fascinating.
Okay, so we're walking through the facility, and the district president is standing next to me, and he puts his arm on my shoulder and told me, absolutely, you have the power to stop what you're getting ready to do.
Stop what?
Stop our press conference.
From what? Exposing UPS to what they didn't do on behalf of
absolutely
our member, their driver?
That's exactly what he wanted. And to the point to where he told me, if you do this, this is going to start a war. We are going to have problems. And my simple response was, give me 2 minutes. Let me make a couple of phone calls and I'll meet back up with you. So that's exactly what I did. And I called the division, the IBT, and let them know the situation that
All
I was into.
direction from the general president's office.
Absolutely. And he was giving some very strict words. Absolutely. If UPS wants fucking problems out of us and they want to start a war, go in there and tell him he's got exactly what he wants. So I went in there and I repeated those words. Hey, listen, pal, if you want a fucking war with us, you're going to get it, because we are going to move forward with our press conference. And then exactly what we did. We had a lot of members show up and rally behind us, and we did the press conference, and it was successful to show the general public that they were absolutely put in danger by UPS because they didn't follow some of the things.
But not just put in danger that day. They're continuously, our members are put in danger every single day during this extreme heat. So after the press conference, UPS doesn't like that exposure. They don't like this black mark, so to speak, on the brand, right? On the brand, we got to protect the brand.
Yep.
How many times did we hear that in national negotiations?
Too many.
Yeah. We don't give a fuck about the brand at this point. We care about getting our members home safe. So what does that big, tough vigilante manager do after you hold your press conference? What does he do?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. We stayed exactly on course, told everybody we're moving full steam ahead. And we did our press conference. And, at the end of the day, it was just a bunch of threats, but you're exactly right. UPS did not want the black eye and the shield to be tarnished because of their own actions. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's exactly what they asked and threatened us over it, but they didn't get what they wanted.
Right. So what happened to that driver subsequently came back? Did they interview him? What could you have done different to avoid this accident?
What could you have done different?
Yeah. Well, we called you, you fucking idiot, told you we weren't feeling good, and you basically, I'm sure they, like they do everything else, you need to bring it in right away and do this. If you don't, you're insubordinate, you're going to be fired. I'm certain that was on their mind, right? What happened to the driver?
So he stayed out for a little bit and ultimately recovered and came back to work. He's back driving now today and is continuing his career at UPS. He's just, obviously, when you talk to him, he's a lot more mindful. He was a young man too. And that's one thing I've learned about the heat-related injuries. Doesn't matter if you're young or old.
No, and it'll catch you. I think that's a great point because, UPS is focused all the time on make sure you hydrate, drink plenty of water. But you go in these facilities and some of them have water provided, some of them don't. One of the big focuses for us was inside employees having ice machines. Now, we recently found that there's 1,152 ice machines in each facility, which is adequate and sufficient according to the safety committee and their cooperation and their investigations in this. Having the number sufficient is one thing. Having them operationally in these facilities is another thing. And for the audience who have never worked at UPS, doesn't know what a UPS facility is, it's basically a warehouse where you have folks in trailers in the sun, unloading them onto conveyor belts, going down conveyor belts, hot, repetitive lifting, bending, stooping. It's a tough pace to stay at. And the requirement is to make sure there's ice machines so that the people can properly hydrate. And what has your experience been with ice machines? I mean, Ryan, you're a rank and file like Hector. You are in these facilities every single day. Are there ice facilities in the ice in the facilities, ice machines in your facilities? Are they adequate? Do they serve the purpose?
They don't work.
What do you mean they don't work?
There's no ice.
So you're a package car driver. What do you utilize the ice for?
Just to, honestly, I put my cooling towel in it just to cool, and I put it around my head so I don't.
Cooling tower.
Yeah.
Like towel? Like
towel, yes.
So you're there at 8:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Before you leave for your 10, 12-hour day.
Yes.
You get a bucket of ice or put ice in your cooler.
I try to.
Put your towel there, put it on your head. Like, how long does that last?
if I'm lucky,
So
3 minutes.
the ice facility, the ice machines in the facility for the drivers are basically just to put in their coolers and use as they see fit. Put in your water bottle,
Yes.
keep your lunch cool, whatever. It really doesn't do anything for you as far as keeping your body temperature down and or keeping you hydrated.
No.
So let's talk about the inside function of these ice machines. So these ice machines are there, and what do the inside employees, the part-timers, utilize them for?
So, Sean, here's what we run into. We have the ice machines in there, and most of the time when you have your part-timers come in, you have, depending on the size of the building, of course, but in your major buildings, when you have 200, 250 part-timers come in, and the company does have some ice machines out there, when that shift comes in, well, they were depleted by the shift before. So if you walk in and you have your jug and you go put it in an ice bin, guess what? There's no ice in the bin because it hasn't been able to make enough ice.
And it's got to
for the
maintain a
next shift.
certain temperature inside the building. The ice machine has to maintain a certain temperature inside the building to produce that ice. So you have a facility, most facilities run 20 hours per day, some run 24 hours. You have a preload in a smaller facility that runs 4 in the morning, 8 in the morning. You may have 40 to 100 people on that shift, right? On the average, in an average building, every area is different. And then sometimes you have the drivers coming in at 8:30, taking their share of the ice. And then you have another shift, or you might have preloaders leaving, filling up ice to leave. And then you've got a noon shift, a day shift coming in, part-time is hitting that machine again, and then probably hitting it on the way out. And then you have another shift coming in at 4:30, 5 o'clock. In the meantime, you've got other employees in there working those facilities. And then you have the local sort coming in that starts about 5:30 at night. Some drivers are coming in between 5:30 to 7:30, 8 to 9 o'clock. Everybody's hitting these ice machines. Mind you, the building is still 100 degrees, right? So
Oh, yeah.
what is the manufacturer? Because I know being on those committees, you're very astute at how these ice machines will function, how they're supposed to be functioning. So they're in the facilities. We all agree that there's an adequate enough machines contractually that they've agreed to in these facilities, but just having them in there doesn't mean they're going to operate and function like they're designed to do. And tell us about some of the things you've discovered. And I'm sure all our UPSs around the country are finding the same things.
Yeah. So if you go and you just simply look up the brand of the ice machine that's been purchased and put in a lot of these facilities, and you go look at the owner's manual, and you go and talks about the installation. It gives you parameters of so many feet on each side to make sure there's ventilation for the machine to suck air in to make the ice. And within those parameters, it says not to store them over 100 degrees. They will not function over 100 degrees. So you can imagine we've hung temperature thermometers up next to these very same machines that they bought, and as they go down and it's 113 inside the warehouse and the ice machine isn't working, it's shocking how everybody thinks, well, I can't believe this thing is not working. It's brand new. Well, you didn't even read the damn owner's manual.
Right. So that's one aspect of it. And let's say they are working. How suitable are they for human consumption? Because I know, like, of course, my dentist tells me all the time, stop fucking chewing ice, you're breaking your teeth. Right.
Yeah.
And or, you're putting it in your Crystal Light, you're putting it in your Gatorade, whatever the case may be.
That's right.
You don't know what these ice storage. So you get the ice machines that produce the ice, and now you have the storage machines, the storage ice containers that the ice goes into, right? What do those look like? Because, knowing people that have worked in bars, and I've been in a bar once or twice in my life, like, what do those machines look like inside? And is it actually suitable for human consumption?
I'll tell you this, our drivers know. And if you line
I mean, look at that. What is this right here?
That's my picture. Yeah.
What is that?
That's an ice machine.
Yep.
So tell us, just describe
Yeah.
what
So this is right, your typical ice machine. The machine is big. That's the chute. That's where the ice comes from. And right to your point, you're like, look, you have many shifts. The ice.
Pull in closer. The audience wants to hear you, that big guy. Sit still. We know you got ADHD, so just sit still. Right? So our management's not going to retaliate against you for being here. And if they do, we'll beat the shit out of them.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah. So to your point, right, you have all these shifts coming through. We understand that, right? That's not management's fault that we run out of ice. It's management's fault that they don't take care of the ice machines. Like you said, I fill my cooler up. That ice is going to melt, and I'm going to drink that. right? Because my drink is in there, and this is an actual machine from Tampa. You can see
What is that though?
that's a new machine.
Looks
No.
like mold.
Yeah, it is mold. I mean, look at it. I mean, there's dirt, there's grime, and this is a building that just opened. So, this is not stock footage.
So has anybody got sick from this shit? Because
I'm sure.
the Board of Health ever came in and saw an ice machine like this, I'm certain that they would have an issue with it. No?
That's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal. That's not a one-off. UPS likes to use the word one-off.
So
one-off.
that's from your facility in Tampa and your facility in Texas, and probably assuming everything in between is going to look the same.
Absolutely. That's what those ice machines
Yeah.
look like. And that's what our members go to make sure that they make it through the day.
And I assume we've brought this to UPS's attention, saying the machines aren't working. It's putting our members at risk. They can't get ice. They can't, hydrate properly. What is their response to all this?
Just what I said, it's a one-off. It happened to me the other day.
We complied. We have the right amount of machines in there. Now, historically, a good employer or someone that follows the letter of the law and lives up to the standard of what they're supposed to live up to would pivot and say, you know what? These things aren't working right. It's too hot. I'm going to get an ice company to deliver, 10,000 pounds of ice every single day
They
to
did
make
that.
sure our members. They did it for how long?
I'll tell you, but here's what they did. That when they realized these ice machines were failing, so they go get these chest freezers, and they have a contract with an ice company, and they relied on this ice company. They knew the machines weren't working. They weren't fixing them, so they started to rely on an ice company. But
Someone that's going to supposedly make a delivery on time when it's supposed to be there, and it's totally out of your control at this point in time. So they put outside 1,152 ice machines they have in there to make ice on site. They further know there's a problem, so they say, we're going to get these chests contract out with a company who's going to deliver ice to us every single day.
yes, well, they put them on a schedule based on how many drivers are in the building.
Well, not just drivers. You got inside people in there.
I was headed there next. So if you look at these chests, and UPS says, hey, the ice machines in the building are for everybody, including the drivers. But when it comes to the chest ice, I have pictures, and it's happening right now, to where they take these chests and they put padlocks on them, and they put signs on them that says this is for the drivers only. And they padlock them when the drivers aren't there. They'll open the padlocks when the drivers get there, and then when they roll out about 10 o'clock, they'll leave. But here's the problem. When their third-party contractor misses a delivery, guess what? No, our members have no ice. What keeps them alive every day when it's 1:05 and the company just looks at us and says, well, our vendor failed us. Well,
so they're just focused on, hey, you know what? We did what we were supposed to do. It's out of our control. Fuck you.
yes.
Yep.
And then they'll give you the typical excuse, well, we're going to go get ice. Well, here's the problem I have with that. I walked into a building the other day about 8:15 in the morning to do a shop visit. And we get there and we open up all the ice chests. There was not one bit of ice in the entire facility.
Mhm.
So, of course, they see us looking at it and taking pictures, and then they commit to getting in their cars and making sure the on-road supervisors are going to bring ice in as they come in. Well, the problem is obviously there's several
So
hundred.
the on-road supervisor who's coming to work, hey, do me a favor. It's like, how you call home when you're coming home from school or something, or you call your wife, hey, grab me a loaf of bread on your way home.
Yep.
Like, so what do they call the supervisor? Hey, grab a bag of ice. One bag of ice for like 400 people on your way in. That's a fucking bad idea, right? Yeah.
Put some ice in your trunk and come in and throw it in there. So I did the shop visit, and of course they said, hey, we're going to bring the ice. And I did see people walk around with some ice. But long story short, as I walked the building, well, on the way back out, the chests sit right there at the front. And the preload manager said, Dave, make sure you come back by and you take pictures before you leave, because we're going to get this ice. So guess what I did? I went back and I took the pictures, and there was still not one damn bit of ice in any of those machines. Because why? The ice that the on-roads brought in, guess what? The drivers took every damn bit of it.
Sure.
So now we're back to no ice in the building once the drivers came in. So you can see UPS chases their own tail, because they do have faults in this program, and they just.
So what are some of the injuries and or shortfalls our members run into working inside that building? Like, so you see it as steward, you see it as rank and file, you have to deal with it on a much intimate basis. But tell us about some of the horror stories about a lot of these inside people. And people need to realize that a lot of our members that work on the inside, have other jobs. So they are part-time employees. They're there for the benefits because we negotiated the best benefits, free healthcare and pensions for our part-timers who work 3.5 to 4 hours on average on each shift. But they probably do 8 hours worth of work in those 3.5 hours with the pace. But people need to realize the majority of the part-timers are either younger folks, younger men and women that are looking for a career that aren't old enough to drive, that come in and or are going to college, and they're working there. And then you have a whole nother demographic of people that have other jobs that these hours fit into them, where they get their health care, they get their pension, and they're not 22 or 23 years old. They're 30 to 60 years old, some 70. What is it like for those folks working inside the extreme heat? And what have you seen and what has been done to protect those members?
So right now, we're keeping a close eye on it because why? We know that UPS is going to start hiring because we know their peak season is coming and they're going to start looking at their staffing levels. Well, even if they start hiring right now and they hire 7, 8 a week in some of these buildings, well, that's just what you talked about is you're getting now brand new employee that has never been in the UPS system. And in Texas, I think it's going to be 95 degrees today. It's the high. So you take a brand new employee that may have not ever worked in a warehouse and put them in the back of a 53-foot trailer, and it's 115 in the back of that trailer. That's something that they've never been exposed to.
They've never been exposed to. Some of them are working in tech. Some of them are working in, air-conditioned offices. They don't want to pay $2,000 a month for their health care. So they know UPS has the best benefits. They're going to go there. Talk about fucking culture shock.
Yeah, absolutely. They get in there and they're like, holy shit. I don't know how many ex-military members that I've talked to that said the service wasn't like this. This is worse than going to the service.
That's right.
Getting the shit kicked out.
And think about a lot of those folks. They were Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, that some of them deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, all over the place. And they're saying, hey, it's not so bad over there compared to here.
Compared to this shit.
That's a fucking problem. That's the truth.
It just gets so hot in the back of those trucks and back of the trailers, man. And if the fans don't work, it gets up to like 130 in the back.
So I think in the local just documented there's like 250 incidents this summer alone on people having either heat-related issues, whether it's heat stroke or passing out or getting sick and or having to go to the hospital to get intravenous. What is it like working inside these facilities?
It's brutal.
I mean, Dave, what are you dealing with?
Look, I'll tell you, it's constant through the summer. And for the last 4 years, I've dealt with it. Either we have somebody die or get even permanently damaged for the rest of their life to where it affects them for the rest of their life. It wasn't, hey, go home and shake it off for the weekend. Some of these people are having lasting results that are going to affect them for the rest of their lives. And we're seeing it more often than not, to where when you get deep into August, where you're wearing the hell out of your employees and you're just absolutely kicking the shit out of them and you're continuing to pound them with 12-hour days. And what happens is when you really get that string of 100-degree days, whether it's a string of 7 days or 10 days, if you look at the end of that 7 or 10 day stretch is when our members are going down. At some point, our bodies, we can make it work, but you absolutely are susceptible to going down. You can't keep it from happening.
So what about the inside employees we are at in Florida?
To Dave's point, this company is no longer a company that has long-lasting employees, right? They're constantly having new employees, and these new employees, right? You want to do a good job, and UPS pushes them, and these young guys, the inside employees are not allowed to shut the belt off. You know that. They had work has to keep on going, so they do start getting these heat-related injuries. They start passing out. They have to ask to go to the bathroom. They have to ask to go to the bathroom. They have to ask to get ice. And by that time...
Well, they're not contractually obligated to do this.
No, but...
They only get away with what
Correct.
What we allow them to get away with. If I have to go to the bathroom and a supervisor tells me not to go to the bathroom, guess what? I'm going to the bathroom right there. Right. But now I have to go home because you wouldn't allow me to go to the bathroom. I mean, you got to take it to the extreme, right?
Well, unfortunately, you do. That's right.
I had that exact...
I mean, imagine a grown adult telling another grown adult, a man or a woman, you can't go to the bathroom.
Happens every day.
I would love someone to tell us that. And our members need to understand, you have to go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom.
Sean, here's where that comes from. So in some of these newer facilities, as we go into the automation, You know, the supervisor used to walk up and down the line and check on everybody. Now they put lights on them. So now when the supervisor looks down the line, he's looking for red or green. So the red light comes on. Well, somebody's backed up and they have the sensors that senses the boxes getting backed up. So that's what he's talking about, is now you have an employee that's in a truck that's getting backed up, probably needs some water or something, and is going to go overheat. Well, when the supervisor, the part-time supervisor, sees that red light on, they know it's their ass if that red light does not get turned on.
There should be an indication something's not right, and it should be addressed.
Yes.
And it should be addressed not at the fault of our members and or at the compromise of their health and condition.
Not just the boxes. When the supervisor goes in there to see what the backup is, hey, how about we check on the employee once in a while too, to make sure that's not the problem, that they're not going down with a heat-related injury. But time after time again, when you interview the employee that went down on a heat-related injury, every man and woman has pride out there. Nobody wants to not finish their job. And when I talk to them after the heat-related incidences, I would say 100% of them regret not shutting it down because they have their pride and they don't want to look at their boss and say, hey, boss, I'm not going to be able to finish today.
Well, they're afraid. They're afraid
Absolutely.
that they're going to be disciplined. They're afraid they're going to be fired, lose their job. But, you know, it brings me to another point. You know, UPS drivers, the men and women that go out there and drive, and the people inside, I look at UPS as a football game. Like, the majority of people go there, they're in shape, right? And if they're not in shape, they get in shape pretty quick, right? Putting the heat extremes to the side. But you are performing as an athlete doing that job. You're bending, lifting, you're stooping, and you are going. The average person that goes to the gym that doesn't work physically may do an hour and 15 minutes of working out. When you're working for UPS, whether you're a part-timer, you're doing 3.5 to 4 hours consistently working out. If you're on the road, you're doing 12 to 13 hours per day, not taking into account the mental capacity you have to operate under at UPS and the stress they put on you. And, you know, our members, you know, you could be a superhero. You could be the best athlete in the world going to work prepared every single day. But there's certain conditions that you're not going to be able to fight. I mean, you see NFL players, finely conditioned athletes, you know, they practice 3-4 hours a day. Game day, which is 8:30 for package car drivers, 9 o'clock. That's game day. Game day starts. You see elite athletes in all major sports, after a hard, intense play and/or series, what do you see them do when they get a break in the action? They put an oxygen mask on, or they intravenously, again, fluids put into them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a 4-hour game, right? Football. We're talking about football here.
Yeah.
You think a UPS driver who's out there driving, you know, you got to drive on the offense, right? You've got to move as quick as you can, carrying boxes, and you're not getting a blow every 30 seconds. When the whistle blows, you're not getting 30 seconds off to recoup. You're going constantly. And you're going constantly in a box that's an oven. No air condition, ventilation doesn't help. And UPS should know that the body's going to break down at some point in time.
It is. I'll tell you this, when you're delivering out there and it does get to 105 and you get in the back of the truck and you can't find the package, right? UPS says, hey, these packages should be loaded on a certain shelf in a certain spot. So when I open my door, I know exactly where to go to get that box. Well, we all know that does not happen.
I mean, that hundreds of millions of dollars in technology, when they de-skilled the preload and said that, you know, a monkey could do this job.
They fucked it
because of the PAS, that our drivers will never have to worry about where their boxes are. I mean, that was another lie.
Absolutely.
UPS, man, they suffer from IAs.
So when you go in the back of the package car, you're looking for it. And if you're there probably past 15 seconds, your whole body is like, obviously walking into a sauna. When you crank the heat up in the sauna, your whole body, not, you know, just your hot spots, your whole body starts to sweat. And what you'll see is when you're out there and it's 105 and you're back there and you're looking for that package, when you finally find it and it's 105 outside, when you come out of the package car and you're like, wow, it feels awesome out here because I went from 130 to 105 and it's actually cooler outside. And then you're going to get ready to hike 3 flights of stairs to go deliver the boxes. That's exactly what, when you talk about an athlete and it's game time and what they're out there doing, that's exactly what they're up against. They go from 130 degrees looking for the package. They finally find it, get out into 105. And then, like I said, it's a 3rd story apartment. you're up the flight of stairs, back down in the truck on the way to the next facility.
Right. So let's shift gears here for a minute. As far as reporting all these incidents, these are what we know about, right? Unfortunately, some of our members will be talked out of, reporting their injury heat related, or they'll be talked out of, going to see a shop steward, take a blow, go home for the day, go home, recover for the weekend. How many of those that we don't see or that we don't know about that aren't consistent with the stats that they're required to provide to the union and in some cases, I think to OSHA as well?
Too many. But what we're finding is just a simple fear. Fear is exactly what it is. And retaliation in the event that you don't come back the next day and get on that car. We know that we've had members go out on heat-related injuries, and their supervisors know, and they tell them, hey, can I get the day off? Hey, we're short on staffing. We got to have you. And that's exactly what happens to a lot of our members is they say, hey, I'm cramping up, or I didn't feel good today, or hey, I got home and I puked. And it's still, hey, I'll see you tomorrow.
It's funny too, when we talk about all this stuff, because we're pretty public about, UPS is our largest employer, largest collective bargaining agreement. When we talk about this stuff, we don't have any bones about being public about it. And, you read online, and I hate the warriors online because no matter what you do or what you say, you're a piece of shit. You're not doing this. So this heat related stuff has been front and center, especially in zone 1 most of the summer, because it's been unseasonably hot for a long period of time in a lot of these areas. And you see people who will say, well, it's just UPS. You don't have FedEx or Amazon drivers complaining. You know why you don't have FedEx and Amazon drivers complaining? Because they're in fear for their fucking life.
That's right.
They're non-union. They have no conditions. They have no say. They don't have a grievance mechanism. So they're not online complaining about it. They're not making it a public issue. And I guarantee you that the good thing for us, and we're not complaining saying this is hopeless. We're going to correct all this stuff. It's not a problem. Thankfully, we have the ability through the grievance procedure and through arbitration and through the ability to strike in certain areas that a lot of this stuff will be and continuously will be corrected. But when you have people saying, well, why UPS? They're making $46 an hour. They get free health care. They get this, they get that. Why it mustn't happen at Amazon, mustn't happen at FedEx. No, it does happen. They don't report it. And if you do report an issue or you make it public at the non-union FedEx, Amazon, or whoever else, you're going to be fired and terminated. That's right. The difference.
The difference is
so it's an industry pandemic, so to speak, in zone 1, not just for UPS, but for everybody else and the members working under a collective bargaining agreement, whether it's UPS or DHL. Luckily, we have the protections to do it. But let's talk about the package cars. Package cars during those negotiations, we had a lot of leverage against UPS during those negotiations because there was a lot of extreme heat conditions. And look, you've been around. We've all been around a long time. The heat now in Texas, Florida, and Zone 1 is a lot more. It's a lot more hotter than it was 20 years ago. And I think that's a lot to do with the environment, global warming. Boston, we used to get, tons of snow here, and we may get 1 or 2 snowstorms a season. Watch this year, I just jinxed us. We'll probably get about 40 feet of snow. But truly, the environment has changed, and it has got a lot hotter. Winters have got a lot milder in other places. But UPS, when we were negotiating the agreement, especially in zone 1 during the negotiations, there were a lot of heat-related issues in the building, on road. So that gave us a lot of credibility for our arguments as far as these trucks need air conditioning. The cabs of these trucks need air conditioning. The ventilation in the cargo areas need to be there. And you were at those negotiations, and I would open them up every morning with a stat. Whatever subject matter we were discussing at that point in time, I'd have a stat, and then I would have a quote that Carol, all the profits to me, Tomei, would make. And one of them stuck out in my mind. It was a publication, she said, because UPS was getting criticized for, not getting their people off the road or providing adequate equipment with AC our employees, which means our members, our employees are so valuable to us. We don't want anybody working in extreme conditions. So when we were going through the negotiations and you were there, and I said, so we want air conditioning in these package cars. Well, it's a cost issue, whatever. And I said, well, on such and such a date, Carol Tomei had an interview with Bloomberg Magazine, Wall Street Journal, and this was her exact quote. Now, should I start calling her a liar that she doesn't mean this? So every time we had credibility to that. Lo and behold, they agree to put 28,000 package cars into service with air conditioning. Huge, huge victory, huge announcement for us. People thought we would never have it. And they provided the statistics and I said, how are you going to get 28,000? Because UPS has about 93,000 package cars. They probably put anywhere from 70 to 75,000 per day on the road. How are you going to do this? Well, we averaged, and they gave us I think it was a 5 or 10 year average. We averaged replacing 8,000 package cars per year. Each year, we replace 8,000 package cars. So a 5-year agreement. If they were true to their word that they were going to replace 8,000 package cars per year, that's 40,000 package cars, well above the 28,000 that they guaranteed us. Lo and behold, today, they've only replaced about 1,000 package cars. And I think in zone 1, where you are, that there's only 499 package cars in zone 1. Not in Texas, zone 1, which covers a vast majority of states. Zone 1 has Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nevada, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Oregon, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Washington State. All those states, there's only 499 of zone 1s, which represents 1% of the vehicles, right? So zone 2, which is a lot milder, and zone 3, which is a lot more milder, UPS, January of 2025, and we were fighting with UPS the whole time. Where are these vehicles? Where are these vehicles? January, I get a call from Local 804. Now, it's 15 degrees out, middle of January. The principal officer says, hey, not that we have a problem with this. However, they just delivered 20 to 25 brand new vehicles to New York with air conditioning, and it's 15 degrees. I'm like, that's a fucking bad idea, right? So I call the company and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Are you going to move those vehicles to zone 1?
Like we agreed to?
Like we agreed. So in negotiations, UPS agreed to the 28,000, right? Which they're clearly not anywhere on pace to hit that. Ice machines are adequate, even though they're not working properly. The number they have, the fans, they were guaranteed 18,000 fans. They've put in 14,000, which is a good pace, above pace. So they'll hit the 18,000, may even hit more in these facilities, which one of your members criticizes me all the time over, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then, but they're nowhere near going to have air conditioning in these vehicles. So when I called the company, I'm like, you're going to move those vehicles to zone 1. Now, their biggest issue during negotiations was if we buy new vehicles, because they got a cost structure in every state and whatever, and they've got a whole different way of they buy vehicles. And you have a problem if, there's allocation in zone 2 for 5,000 package cars, that we move those to zone 1 and backfill zone 2 with the previous vehicles used in zone 1. It's like, not at all. That's what should happen, because zone 1 is the hottest area in the country. So we were all on board. Everybody agreed. Look, we know that if vehicles get purchased in a zone 1 has the priority to get filled first, and then everything else will get supplemented with zone 1 vehicles. Well, when I brought this up to the company, they're like, well, it's not that easy. Well, like, not that easy. You've got 25 zone 1 vehicles delivered in New York. We can ship them. You can ship them down to zone 1. And on the way back, you can load those trucks up and ship them back to New York. I'll have to get back to you on that. Well, those trucks are still in zone 1 and zone 2. So it's like, what do we do now? what do? We're going to grieve it, which we have grieved it. They made a commitment to 28,000 over the lifetime of the agreement. They're not going to make it. And their excuses, we're just not replacing the vehicles. Okay, if I'm UPS and I know I agreed with the Teamsters, who, by the way, in 2028 isn't that far away. And I told people this all the time. I told UPS this. You made a fucking liar out of me, because what you agreed to in that contract and what we conveyed to our members, which we stand behind this contract. It's the best contract that's ever been negotiated. You promised us growth, which now you're saying there's going to be layoffs. You get this bullshit buyout program that no one's buying into. We're going to hold you to the growth. Automation, we agreed that, there's going to be protections against jobs, and we've done pretty good. I think you're going to be the first facility that opens up under the shot and gut. And I think we talked about you're probably going to end up with more jobs as a result of this technology, or close to. Even though we're getting criticized by some of our members that, just no matter what we do, if we cured cancer, would still be pieces of shit. But our goal is to maintain as many jobs. But the biggest thing is, if I make an agreement with you, forget union, forget the company. I agree to something with you and I can't deliver on it. But there's an alternative where I can satisfy the needs, uphold the Dalen principle. If I'm UPS, I'm coming to Sean O'Brien, I'm coming to the teams just saying, hey, there's no way we're going to be able to replace all these 28,000 vehicles. However, why don't we retrofit these vehicles in zone 1 with air conditioning? And as new vehicles come in with air conditioning, we put them in zone 1, and those retrofitted, we'll start funneling them into zone 2. Not illogical, not unattainable. But if I'm UPS, especially knowing that we're coming into 2028, where I am personally looking for an excuse to strike these fucks because they made a liar out of us with our members, wouldn't you be trying to find solutions to problems?
You would think that's exactly what they would be looking at doing, because they know that they sat down at the table with us, introduced all these fancy things that were supposed to help our members. But here we are 2.5 years into this contract, and we can see that it was an empty bag of promises.
Right.
When it comes to, hey, absolutely, we're going to look out for your members. If they call us and they're going down on heat, we're going to take care of them. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you all this equipment. We're going to give you the ice machines. Like you said, they're giving us the ice machines, but you're giving us a broken ice machine that doesn't work. Come on, UPS.
They are giving us the sleeves out of their vest.
Exactly. Is what they have going on. The heat shields they put in. You could talk about that for an hour too. It's a little thin piece of metal that they mounted under the car that they complied with the contract.
And the exhaust coming through the package car. So not only are you dealing with the car sitting in the hot sun while you're making your delivery, when you are operating that vehicle from point A to point B and it's running, that heat is also adding extra heat up through the floors. Mm-hmm. Now, the ones that came through with the factory heat shields are working decently, right?
Yeah.
They are factory made. They're not an add-on, and they are limiting the amount of heat that's thrown off from the exhaust because of the lack of space in between the floor and the exhaust and the shield. But the retrofitted ones, there's a bigger gap where that heat gets to rise and come right through the shield.
Or just go right around it.
Right.
It's a small shield that they've mounted. If you'll look at your regular vehicle and your exhaust manifold, the heat shield that they put on our vehicles are right on top of it, just like you said, to dissipate the heat out to the side. UPS has installed these heat shields, which we agreed to, for them to put on to, direct the heat away from the body of the exhaust manifold. But the problem is they mounted it so high, when the heat comes off of it, it just goes right around it, right back up into the bottom of the car. So in my opinion, they're not as...
Are there there's vehicles obviously with air conditioning package cars in the centers you represent. Those folks aren't having any issues with heat exhaustion or anything else, correct?
No. I mean, we got, I think there's between 10 and 20 in our jurisdiction. We have about 2,500 package car drivers, and I think we have between 10 and 20 AC package cars.
And there's no heat related issues with those folks. They get in the vehicle to drive, they get an air conditioner blown right on them.
Yep.
I think there's some electric vehicles they just put, or they're going to be putting into effect there. You said that you were standing in one of them recently in the cargo area, talking to members in there, and it was cool.
Yeah. So what we did is, when they first hit the ground, I went out there and grabbed a couple of guys off the safety committee, a couple of unit stewards. We went out and turned the vehicle on. It's electric. and then crank the AC all the way up, and that's probably 80 degrees, 85 degrees, nice and warm, and shut all the doors. And we stood in there, and we had a conversation with the AC on, the fans on, and we were able to maintain a conversation. I mean, we weren't cool by no means, but it wasn't deathly hot in there. And then talking to them and doing a little bit of follow-up. Once they did get that AC, they were saying the difference that they're having is if they normally stop delivering at 5:45 in the afternoon and they got
delivering, they're driving back to the facility.
Yes.
They're driving back in a hot package car with no AC. Their body is still heating up.
Yep. And then generally at about 5:30, 5:45, that is the peak of the heat. And you're sitting on the asphalt, stuck in traffic. You're just basically cooking in a 130-degree hot box, trying to get off to clock out to get to your own vehicle to where you can finally turn the AC on. And sometimes it's 7:30, 8 o'clock at night by the time they're actually getting to the AC. But what we are getting is some reports of when they do get now, when they're done delivering at 5:45 and they have the hour-long drive back or 45-minute drive back in traffic, they're able to shut the doors and turn the AC up to where their body can start cooling down quicker than if they did not have the AC. When they're out performing, and just like you talked about the football game, you're not going to be able to cool off an athlete in the middle of the football game, right? But you know that you can get them AC when they're done. Our package car drivers are out there. They know
They're sitting on the bench where the AC's blown on them.
Yes, they're sitting on it and they're taking care of
And
it.
while the same could hold true while you're sitting in your package car going from point A to point B, the AC's blown on you. You get ready for that next series, which is a delivery. Bang, you're ready to go.
And that's what they're saying. So when they're done delivering and they're able to turn the AC on and drive back, their body is starting to cool off a little bit quicker than not having AC. And they're saying they got some gains in that. They feel a little bit better the next morning.
Has the safety committee, and I know you have talked about retrofitting any of these vehicles with air conditioning, that, you know, if they can't get 28,000 vehicles, and there's no doubt that if they really wanted to, it's like anything else. When they want to implement a technology, that's what their focus is, and they do it real quick, regardless of the cost. There's no doubt in my mind that if they chose to do the right thing by their employees, our members, and live up to the agreement, could they retrofit these vehicles with air conditioning?
Absolutely. We saw one thing happen that UPS did almost overnight, and that's put the cameras in. When they had one of the cameras in, to protect themselves.
Clear it up, because people say we fought long and hard. We do not allow inward-facing cameras to monitor our members.
No.
And the lytics, which they say is, you know, it's cameras, but they don't focus on our drivers. They cannot use any of that information as discipline.
Yes.
However, it's a fact-finding mission. You know, they're not doing it to protect the drivers or anything else. They're doing it to find out what efficiencies and how jobs can be cut as a result of technology. So there are no inward-facing cameras.
None. They wanted those Linux systems to pitch to us what they said to protect themselves, protect the shield, because they know in an event of an accident, it's going to protect all of us, right? That's what they sold this thing to us as.
It's mainly geared to protect them, not us.
Absolutely. So they got what they wanted. My point being is when UPS wanted that system in that vehicle, whether it's a system that is going to track us, telematics, when they wanted that, they put them in the cars overnight. When they wanted the Linux system to track everything going,
yeah. So they put the technology, telematics in there. We all remember when that went in.
Yep.
And it would count how many times you clicked your seatbelt, how many times you opened your door, the bulkhead door, all this crazy technology, right? And they had that implemented probably in, if let's say real time numbers here, 93,000 package cars probably had it within a year and a half.
No question about it.
in which did nothing for us on the safety side of it. Did nothing. Did everything for the company for them to track every movement that we do.
Our members were pretty creative during the implementation of that. I tell you that, it's because it tracked everything you did, clicking seatbelts. You had old timers that were like, I'm not wearing my fucking seatbelt. So they'd click their seatbelt in and sit behind it. And they'd be brought in the office like, you didn't unclip your seatbelt all single day. Like, how did you get out of the front?
You know, but the point is when they wanted it, they went out and got it.
Well, and that's
Well, they didn't care about the cost. And listen, why should they care?
exactly.
Why should they care about the cost? So when we did the agreement coming out of COVID, you know, they had $100 billion earnings, not their profit, but earnings. Biggest ever. You know, their earnings went down each year, but their earnings went down not because of the cost of the contract. They were on a trajectory down out of the Amazon business. And they made it clear across the table. And they were so fucking cute. Like they want us to torture Amazon. They want to do all this shit, but don't use our name because that's 11% of the volume. Like, okay, you want us to bust their balls and torture them, organize them, which we want to organize them, and I believe we will. But you're like a coke, you're like, I always say you're like Stockholm syndrome. You fell in love with your captor. But they made it clear, like, hey, Amazon volume, we have a trajectory down out of Amazon. We don't want to be delivering Amazon volume. It's not going to be as fast as we think it is, but there'll be a time where we're out of it, and we're going to focus on, small businesses like boutique kind of picking and choosing their packages. They want profitable packages. So we all knew that going in there. So they couldn't come to an agreement with Amazon during the last year or so. And Amazon just wanted them to deliver packages for a certain amount. They refused to do it. So bang, they're out of Amazon. They still have a presence in there, but it's not going to be like it is. And then conversely, that SurePost where, they were in negotiations with the post office. The post office wanted them to handle more packages, less money per package. So UPS, said, we're not going to agree to that. That's their business model. That's their right to do it. But for us, what worked out for us was 3 million of those packages ended up, not billion, 3 million ended up back on our trucks. But what's the first thing that UPS does? Is they weren't making, according to them, they weren't making any profits on those packages. So in the residential packages, they upped the rates.
Mm-hmm.
So I think half of those packages
volume left.
go to FedEx or non-union or Amazon. And so even though we got 3 million back on the cars, right, which we fought in negotiations to get more packages on the cars, and those packages on the cars create inside jobs because those packages are flowing through the facility. Well, they wouldn't agree to a price, and they were never really upfront with us about what that was, whether there was no profit or losing money. I mean, I'm looking at it, hey, if it's break even and you're creating jobs and you're keeping people working, so be it. It is what it is. It's the cost of doing business. You can always negotiate a better deal the next time around. But they got out of that, and it's like, then they announced they're going to lay off 20,000 people. All they're concerned about is being that $90 billion company, $89 to $90 billion, right? My point to all this, and being consistent and just making as much as they can with less people. I don't feel bad for them at all. $90 billion, and they can't afford to retrofit, 28,000. Not even the 93,000 they have and the 75 to 80 they put on the road every day. Retrofit 28,000 package cars in zone 1, and you don't have to fucking hear from us. Problem solved.
They can't do it. It's the most amazing thing. And then when you see the manager have to scoop up the same men and women that he looks at and says, hey, we're all one big team here. We're here, don't worry.
Yeah.
Right.
UPS, we're a big family.
Yeah.
But they consistently scoop them up off the concrete in ambulances. Where are they at? Where are they putting that pressure on UPS saying, hey, guys, we need some AC down in Texas where it's 105, and then down in Florida where we're sweating our ass off. Where's their upper management?
Look, they have such a morale problem in management. I get to see it from a different view than most people. And as you know, I'm in these facilities. Fred Zuckerman and I are in these facilities 3 to 4 times per week. And I have more complaints from management people coming up to me saying this is the worst we've ever seen. We wish we had someone like the Teamsters Union fight for us.
Yeah.
And, that's telling because, being around UPS over 20 years, working for them a long time, you're like fresh meat. Been there 9 years. But there was always a discipline with UPS management, no matter how bad it was. You never knew how bad it was for them because they never spoke out of school and you never knew what they made. That has completely changed. Now they complain, that they're openly complaining to us. I was in a building in Nashville, Tennessee. I think it's Silver Creek. And it's a big hub and it's fucking ugly and it's nasty. And our members work hard there. And management is just totally, awful in that building. I am walking through and there's a young lady supervisor. I'm walking by in the radio, says, Sean O'Brien's in the building. No supervisors at work today. This was last week. And I stop and I look and I go, how you doing? And she's like, good, how are you? I go, great. I'm Sean O'Brien. She goes, oh, thank you so much for being here today. This is a supervisor. Thank you so much for being here today. This is the first day I'm really not going to have to physically work.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? And they want to lay fucking people off and not live up to their obligation. But getting back to it, they're still always going to be a profitable company. And they got all these little schemes they're doing. I mean, think about this medical company they have now where they have these laboratories and they're making, you know, I think they said they made $6 billion in profit just off this small little niche business. You know, these are all moves they make pretty quick. The roadies of the world were all over that because, you know, we believe that they're deferring some of our work or a lot of our work there. They have all these schemes. Well, stop scheming for like 6 months and fix the fucking major problems and fix what you agreed to provide to our members.
Simple. Fix exactly what you said at the table. And they told us as a negotiating committee, all of us, we were going to fix this, this, and this because we believe in it. And we do agree that we should modify the contract and put some additional safety concerns in here to where we can fix some things. But then when you go to try to get them fixed, that's where the fight is. And I'm with you, Sean.
Well, the problem is the fight's another issue.
Yeah.
Because the people we negotiated with at that table, the labor people, and when I first started, up until about 10 years ago, the labor people were the ones that educated the operators, the supervisors, the division managers, the district managers on what the agreement was, what the changes meant, and what the operator's obligations were to uphold that contract. Conversely, now, labor has no say in anything, even though they sat at the table, they made these agreements, and instead of educating and enforcing what they agreed to, they're basically a very passive, and operations people are just violating the contract of what was agreed to by the labor people. And there's a divide between the operations and the labor, and we are the meat in that sandwich. Where I call the person I deal with at UPS. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what that means? Well, yeah, we have a struggle with the operators. There was a time where labor would be like, operators, you don't fucking listen to what you're doing, you're going to be out of here. Now it's like, well, you know, they have to have their day in court. Day in court. You know what you agreed to. You know what the interpretation of language is. You want to bring, and I've had people say to me, I've had upper level management people say, we got to bring this case to the panel because this manager needs a slap in the head. So you're going to utilize a grievance procedure to slap your manager in the head when you should be fucking telling him, this is what we agreed to, this is what it means. And I think another part of the problem is the grievance procedure. We have a very, very good, unique system, panel systems. But the problem is these labor people are afraid to talk to the operators. They're afraid to tell them what the agreement really means. And they just bring everything to the panel. Southern Region panel, how many outstanding grievances? How many grievances are outstanding? Or your local? Let's talk about your local, 767. How many grievances do you file per year?
Right now, this year, I looked at the numbers last month. If we stay on the trend that we're going on, we should break 48,000 grievances, an all-time high for our local.
And how many UPS members are in your local?
About 10,000.
10,000 UPS members alone in your local. And you're going to have 94,000?
No, 48,000.
48,000 grievances.
Yes, filed this year, just this year. Soup's work, it's out of control.
Right.
I mean, absolutely out of control. Labor, when it comes to having local level hearings, they're absolutely terrified to sign off on the grievances.
Even though they sat in the negotiation.
Blatantly wrong.
On a national level and a local level, because most people don't realize that we have a national contract that covers all the national issues, deal with the economics, but then there's supplements for each area region that deal with the actual working conditions that are germane to that area. And those labor folks sit on those negotiations as well. They know what they agree to. And instead of fixing the problem, they just kick it down the road. And our grievance system is a panel system that was designed to have expedited arbitration and resolutions to issues that, you know, are cost effective to both sides. Let's get a resolution. Let's get back to work and move forward. When you have 48,000 open grievances. That's not resolution. That's not working together. That's not a fast and speedy process.
No, they're scared shitless to make decisions. Whether it's the manager meeting with the stewards,
That's right.
they're afraid to make a decision. And then they kick the grievance up. So we have a business agent go meet with the labor manager. Same thing. You get into the hearings, oh man, I can't sign off on that one. That penalty pay is too much. This is what we agreed to. Get the damn pen and paper out and go to work. If there's a violation there and it breaks their $1,200 threshold, which I'm sure you've heard about, and they just get scared shitless to sign off anything over $1,200.
A $90 billion company can't spend over $1,200.
Yeah, without getting slapped by the boss, right? And then they're in trouble.
Well, I got a better bad idea. Just follow the contract, do what you're supposed to do, and you'll have no grievances.
Well, the contract says they are contractually obligated to meet with the steward every week.
Yeah, and I know we are telling local unions
So
that
it's
they're
not
not meeting. And, you know, part of it falls on us too. I mean, think about it. You know, we're all busy, I guess. But if the local union and the leaders aren't following the contract, they're just as guilty as a company.
Yep.
If they're not meeting on the fourth violation for 9/5, and we've had that happen many times, and that meeting constitutes quadruple times pay for our members, you know, we do have some obligations to meet as well, where, hey, I know if I'm a business agent now and they're obligated to meet with, they don't meet with me, guess what? They're getting a charge filed on their ass. You know, that they're supposed to meet. They're contractually obligated to meet.
That's right.
In a timely fashion. You know, so we have some responsibilities on our part to uphold the agreement. Where do you see, and I'll ask Hector, he's been here longer than any of us dealing with UPS. Where do you see this company going?
You know, I think like you said, UPS is always going to be around in some capacity, right? I believe that. I believe
I don't know. People said Consolidated Freightways was going to be around forever. People said that St. Johnsbury Trucking was going to be around forever. APA, which was a regional carrier in this area, very successful company. They just chose to get out of the trucking business. You know, my fear is that, you know, UPS, you know, I mean, I really would wish that the board would take a hard look at the direction this company was going in, and under the leadership of Carol Tomei, where it looks like it's going, because I don't think they've hit their projected earnings last several quarters. Morale is at an all-time low with this company, both management and unionized employees. And look, if something goes wrong in our organization, the Teamsters Union, guess who's ultimately responsible for it? Me, regardless of whether I'm hands-on in that particular problem or not. But if I'm the board and I'm sitting there and I have to answer to Wall Street, and Wall Street could care less about Main Street. Main Street is us. These are the folks that go to work every single day, and they're hell-bent on getting a return on their investment. I would question the leadership. I would question, how are you going to get us out of this? Because if I'm paying attention as a board of director, or I'm paying attention as an investor, I'm looking at the Teamsters Union, who is the biggest, most powerful union in the country, is fucking pissed off at you. You avoided a strike in 2023 because you had the threat of a strike, and you negotiated the terms and conditions that were a historic agreement that you're not living up to. What does 2028 look like to you if you're on the sidelines as an investor, you're on the sidelines as a board of director, you're not meeting your projections, you're losing volume, and you're making stupid fucking decisions on personnel where you got an overtime problem throughout this whole country where our members are working 10, 11, 12 hours per day, and then you're going to threaten you're going to lay off 20,000 people, which means you have an obligation to fill 22,500 full-time jobs from the existing part-time workforce and create another 7,500 jobs. Like, how are you gonna do all this?
Well, they're not.
And that's a leadership problem. And I just heard recently, I haven't got confirmation, that they hired a consulting company.
Yes.
When have you ever heard, and I've got to get confirmation on this, when have you ever heard of UPS consulting any third party
Exactly.
on how they operate their company? I mean, like them or not, up until 5-6 years ago, this was a company that everything was done internally. Every decision was made was based upon people that have worked there a long time. And opinions didn't fucking matter to them from the outside. It was about this whole company. But when you see that starting to happen, it gives me concern. So, I understand you said they'll always have a presence, but is it too late to save and grow this company? Because I bring up to them all the time. Do you remember our members getting threatened because they didn't produce or promote UPS with sales leads?
Yeah.
Like, there was a whole sales team that we used to meet with as international, where there were times, like, I remember making calls to companies saying, hey, UPS, we've got 300,000 members, I know they're, your company's, putting off a bid, would like a shot at that. Like, we work collectively with the company. There will be no issues. Like, and it's all about creating jobs. There's no sales team. No. There's nothing there. So what is the trajectory?
Well, to your point, right? You are accountable. You're the Teamsters. If it comes to you, you have to take care of the same thing. Carol Tomei, board of directors, she's a CEO, but she's the only non-UPSer, right? Mm-hmm. She doesn't have a UPS background. And you think that the board of directors would see that the direction she's taking us in is the wrong direction.
Well, during negotiations, remember what their motto was: bigger isn't always better.
Yeah, wow.
Right? So, wow, did that, to your point, wow, right? Does that hold true?
Absolutely. And I think that's where it goes back to exactly what you said. As board of directors, then you're there to protect the shield and protect the brand from everybody, including Carol. She has been very clear on what she's going to do to this company in negotiations. She's talked about shrinking it, right? Bigger is not better. We're going to scale down. We're going to scale down. So all these longtime UPSers, to where when we were out hitting the streets in our package cars, you never left a box behind. Not one box did not make.
Look, I was brought up on the Teamster world.
I was brought up on the Teamster world, fourth generation. You leave with a full truck. You come back with a full truck. Yep.
Now it's
that's your job.
When you go and you hit some of these big pickups, hey, look, leave it. Leave the volume. In my 27 years, up until several years ago, I had never, ever, ever snipped UPS of leaving a box.
I was in 43rd Street 3 weeks ago, Vinny Perone. And he says, look, see all this freight? They're just storing in these trailers. It's supposed to be, they're rolling the volume over. Yeah. And now they're talking about cutting jobs. He's like, they roll this volume over every week. Correct. So people that think they're getting their packages, and even worse, which is worse, there's times where a package will say it's been delivered.
Yeah.
And it's not been delivered. Like, so who's falsifying the documents?
Mm-hmm. Well, and to that point, remember, they're all about protecting the shield, but we're the shield, right? The customer never sees management. The customer will never see Carol. The customer only sees that package car and me. And what happens is, just the other day, hey, it shows that you delivered this. And I said, look, this is all fake now. They have the ability to show that it's because they want to show those percentages of on-time deliveries and so on and so forth. And I'm really, and I hate it because I'm proud of this company. I have the shield on my chest and I have to say, well, they're lying to you. But Hector here will make sure that you get your package. Your customers know you.
Yeah, and customers are like, I work with UPS because of
you. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, they don't realize, UPS doesn't realize. I mean, that is true. Most customers are retained because of the relationship they have with their drivers, right? But they used to be retained not just because of the relationship of the drivers, but the service.
Correct.
The service was impeccable, absolutely impeccable. And I remember having conversation with people like, oh, UPS is expensive. But I'll tell you one thing, it's guaranteed and the package gets delivered with no problem. People don't mind paying for something when they're getting the service.
Yeah, what you pay for.
So you're a 9-year employee, right? 32 years old.
Yes.
You've been a victim of heat issues. Like,
yes,
we don't want to recreate the wheel in the show, but you, I assume, went to UPS because you knew that day one you started working there, you're going to have an opportunity for a career full time, and that at some point you're going to be able to retire from UPS. I assume once you meet a nice, fine young lady that finds out you've got the best health care in the world, she's going to marry. Oh, she already did.
Yeah.
So what is this, like, first date? You showed her your health plan and you knew your RX?
Actually, when we first started dating, I was actually working at Kroger.
Another union wear, right? All right. So she knew you had good health benefits, but you wanted to go to UPS. And again, grocery warehouses were unpredictable at times. I think they've stabilized now. But UPS was always a sure thing,
That's right.
right? Do you still feel like being 9 years in the company, 32 years old, with a wife? Do you have any kids?
2.
2 kids. How old?
4 and 1.
4 and 1. You think you're going to be able to retire from UPS?
I hope so. It's with like Carol Tomei. The way she's taking the company is kind of scary because we don't know. She's not a UPSer. It's nice to know somebody who's been with UPS to actually lead UPS because they know what's going on.
Well, I mean, long time before you were there, supervisors, division managers, and managers all were promoted from within. So in other words, you would have someone that you knew was kind of, I could identify whoever was going to be owning the management because they were like little informants and they'd be hanging around and they had that letter in to be a supervisor.
Yeah.
And UPS would make these promises to these folks that, hey, come into management, put your letter in. You're going to be a millionaire because of the stock.
Yeah.
You're never going to pay for your health insurance. You're going to have a pension and you're going to have job security. Those 4 things. I tell this story all the time. I got in a fight with a division manager one time and I was telling him, basically, you're a piece of shit. You suck. The whole 9 yards like we always do. And he asked for a minute with me alone. And he said to me, and he's since retired. He actually turned out to be a decent manager. He goes, I made the biggest fucking mistake of my life. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you keep shitting on me like it's my fault. He goes, listen, I was told when I took management that I would be a millionaire. That was a fucking lie. I'm never going to be a millionaire. I have more debt now than I ever do because I don't get paid overtime. And then he goes, 2, they told me I'd never pay for my health insurance. I'm paying 25% of my medical. Your members are getting it for free. 3, they cut my pension. They told me I'd never have to worry about my pension. They cut my pension. Your members are getting full pensions. 3 and 4th, they told me I'd never have to worry about my job. I'd have job security. My fucking job gets threatened every single day. And I said, well, great day to be a fucking
Amen. Amen.
right? So I think there's more concern with management people, but to your point, like people used to come up through the ranks, like an on-car soup. And I think like a lot of people had like a lot of time, like vested time in the Teamsters before they switch over to
That's right.
management. So if you're doing your job and you got an on-car soup that was on road as a package car driver for 10 years,
Yeah.
you've got some respect for him or her because they did your job. They knew what they were doing. They became deceitful when they learned how to cut corners. They weren't the same person.
Yes.
But, you did have some respect for that. And that kept the professionalism, that kept, the service, the job, with some sort of discipline.
Well, to your point,
Right.
we had a vested interest.
Right. But then now you got a part-time preloader who goes to Intergrad for 3 months or as a driver for 6 months.
Yes.
They're going to tell a 25-year guy or girl how to do their job and they're not doing it properly.
It falls in a deaf ear.
Yeah. And it's like,
You're absolutely
zero respect for that person.
right. Like,
You wouldn't mind if the person came up to you and said, look, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I was a part-time preloader. They made me a soup, put me through Intergrad. Now I'm a manager. I'm a supervisor. Me personally, I'd have more respect for people saying, tell me what makes your job easier.
Yeah.
What can I do so that when I go to talk to someone else, I gain their respect, but also I'm learning how to do this job the right way.
Yep.
There is not any of that mentoring going
No,
on.
not at all.
And that's why I'm concerned about the company because, of course, we get blamed. It's hilarious. You negotiated too rich of a contract.
That's insane.
Okay. Yeah, now it's our fault.
It always is.
We're getting more of the profits that our members deserve, both full-time and part-time. It's our fault that we're demanding what we're worth. It's just funny. But, the point to all this, I'm concerned about the direction of this company. Because if they don't get back to basics, put people in charge that know what they're doing and actually are concerned about their employees, but more importantly, the future of these jobs. I mean, think about it. This company ever goes out, that's 340,000 people that are going to be on the system.
No, it's scary.
Very scary.
It's like, and what's shocking is you listen and you go around the table and you ask the question, what do you think about UPS and the future of UPS? And it just goes to show you the change of the last 25 years. Because when I started, there wasn't one person that said UPS was ever going anywhere. When I hired in 99, you just got a lifelong career at this company. It'll
Yeah, you
never
knew you
go
love it. You
anywhere.
knew you'd be able to buy a home.
Yep.
You knew you'd be able to purchase a new vehicle every couple of years. You knew your kids really wouldn't want for anything. I don't think there's that same security at all.
I don't think so. So then when you listen to young guys like himself and you say, where's the direction of the company? And they said, I hope I have a job.
Yeah.
20 years ago, we weren't saying that. We knew we had a job. We were going to work
And we
every
were
day.
pretty fucking arrogant about it too. Like,
Yeah,
I'll be here for the next, all right, I'm a UPS driver, right? Right. We were the cream of the crop, the elite, which I still think our members are.
I think so too.
But, I think all the unprofessionalism of the company is reflective not on our members, but it's on the management, and that's from the top down. I mean, if I was a stockholder, if I was in that board, I'd be concerned that the leadership isn't reflective of what needs to happen in that. Look, I say it all the time. If I'm not effective as a leader, you don't have to worry about an election to get rid of me. I'll walk away on my own. I mean, it's not like the lady's hurting for money either. I mean, I think she makes 20 million or north of 20 million.
Yeah, north.
Plus with all these stock options. I mean, take your masquerade and move on.
Move on.
Well, that's it. She's so detached from the working man. You can pay her 25 plus million
Men and
women, right?
coming off of the historic women's conference in Toronto, which it is documented, and I've witnessed it. Our teams to women are a lot stronger than I agree. I couldn't agree more.
They have more balls.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. These women do not play. But when you're getting paid as much as 30 million a year, you can walk away and let it burn.
Yep.
And that's the feeling I have. I feel like she's like, you know what? I'm gonna be fine. I could, and we're talking 25 million a year. Let it burn. And that's the feeling I get with Carol Tomei.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and I can, I'm never gonna be the one that's not gonna criticize, but there's a lot of good leaders out there, CEOs, that I have disagreements with, but they are loyal to their company, loyal to their employees, and loyal to the business. This isn't one of them right now.
Correct.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
What I see, like I said, the concerns of moving forward and the trajectory of the business model itself, when she's holding her cards and she's saying that we believe in smaller and shrinking the company and making more profitable on a smaller company. That's the question to the board is we've been born and bred for over 100 years to go grab every box, every box,
Regardless of it makes my
box, go get it.
Yeah.
And to see her come in and basically do a 180 with the company, I think that's where you're seeing a lot of the change and a lot of the shock come into it. And some of the securities that we go out and we bust our ass for every day and to deliver in the extreme heat is for the security to have that job. And you can sit here today. There's that same security that I had when I started driving that I felt that I had. I don't think it's sitting there today.
Well, the one thing that's important to recognize is 2028 is going to be here before we know it.
Yes.
And, UPS only understands one thing, and it's usually hostile behavior or direct impact to their reputation negatively. Stay tuned. The 2028 is going to be a lot different than it was 2023.
Buckle your chin.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be a part of it.
If you can have lunch with anybody in the world or anybody outside of like a family member that's deceased or anything, someone that you really would like to meet, who would that be?
have to be alive.
Huh?
Do they have to be alive?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
not a relative. I mean, that's easy. I'd love to sit down with my father who died 13 years ago.
Oh boy. That's kind of put me on the spot there.
Carol told me.
Yeah. Ask her all the questions like, why are you still here? No. I don't know. I'm a big Cowboys fan, so maybe Troy Aikman or maybe even Jerry Jones, just to kind of see like
How a CEO treats his employee.
Exactly.
I mean, he wants to pay Micah Parsons a lot of money, but Micah Parsons thinks he's worth more. So,
Yeah.
that would be a good perspective to get.
Mhm. Just like, I don't know, just to see the inner workings of that would be interesting to me.
Okay. How about you, Hector?
Me, I'm gonna go with someone who is deceased. And thanks to
tell him.
I know. I'm a rule breaker.
He's always in fucking trouble.
But yeah, but this I tip my hat to your administration. We're able to get MLK Day paid, and he's one of my heroes.
Oh yeah. So that's been 3 or 4 answers that people have consistently said. Yes, yeah.
Dave, who Who would you have lunch with?
See, I'm a sports guy. I could go through a list of people that that you see, guys that have come along and played different sports that have been more mentors to people, or the dog in the room or the dog on the team. I kind of I would go back and forth on those. Find somebody I'd probably want to go to, be selfish, and find me somebody that I would consider more of a mentor on a team that kind of held the team up. And then get me the dog that was on the sideline, that kept the team alive, that kept everybody in the middle of the fight. Yeah, the dog that's in the fight.
Well, you know who I want to have lunch with?
Who's that?
Snoop Dogg.
That would be a good one.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, Snoop.
I've never smoked marijuana, and I probably wouldn't, but I'm sure he would be firing up a blunt to get me his perceptor on.
Yeah, you get a count. I like him because, he comes from a neighborhood, right? Had a lot of choices to make. Made some good choices, made some bad choices, but persevered. A family guy, been with the same woman over 30, 35 years, mentors his kids, coaches his kids, and he's, gets to hang out with Martha Stewart, So, that's a guy that, I like. I'd like to meet him. There's a lot of other people I would as well, but.
Well, he's into everything. Snoop seems to find himself right now. Every time you turn around, Snoop is at the big event or on the commercial or something. So he's got a good run going right now. So I'd be down to hang out with Snoop.
Heck yeah, him and Shaq.
That's it. Well, listen, I thank you all for coming on the podcast today. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We just got to continue to be vigilant, enforce the agreement, and hold UPS accountable. We had a lot of good dialogue today. I think we come out with some solutions. I appreciate your opinion of being such I wouldn't say a novice driver, but 9 years. But the good news is 30 years goes by real quick.
Yes.
So if we're still in business, in the podcast business, maybe we'll have you on your 30th year. I'll be about 92. No, it was great, Dave. Thank you. You do a great job with your local union. 12,500 members in a right to work state. Future of the Teamsters Union, and Hector, good friend, advocate, e-board member, Local 79. Again, great future ahead of you in the Teamsters Union, and we all just got to keep on focus on what our missions are and what our goals are, and just continue to make this union bigger, faster, and stronger. So thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.